Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lead to Scale show, where we interview prominent leaders in the accounting and financial industries space. So today, in this episode, we have a great guest. His name is Mark Allen. He's the executive director of TXCPA Houston, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you for being here, Mark. I appreciate you accepting the offer.
My pleasure.
And, just to start, I already, introduced you. You're the executive director, but I would like to know, can you tell us a little bit more about TXCPA Houston and also your role in it?
Sure. TXCPA Houston is one of 20 chapters of the Texas Society of Public Accountants, and we are the largest of the 20 chapters. We have about 7,000 members in the greater Houston area, and it is a membership organization for CPAs as well as accounting and finance professionals. So we bring a lot of different perspectives together with this organization. We have a lot of expertise and knowledge, and one of our main functions is to facilitate connections between all of that expertise and all of those people that are representing the different facets of this profession. So we do that with CPE events, with seminars, webinars. We have interest groups that we have a very active CFO controllers group that gets together quarterly, and they talk about issues that are pressing and get ideas from each other. So we're always looking for different ways that we can just connect people in ways that are very meaningful to them. In addition, we have several, numerous benefits that members can tap into that can hopefully enrich their professional lives as well. Anywhere from insurance to some emotional support and all kinds of things. So we're trying to always just facilitate what is it that we can do to help out our members.
I love that. Just from something, there's something that I want to ask you from what you said, but that last part, I think, stuck with me a little bit here. I'm guessing, and you will be the better judge of that, but I'm guessing that from COVID on, right? I think that's gotten a little bit more maybe interest, right? Because we got started working from home. We stopped going to the offices. So I'm guessing that now, that network, that community, and that peer assistance that you mentioned is even more important than before.
Absolutely. And Peer Assistance is an interesting program that it is traditionally, I think it started out as more of a support for those dealing with substance abuse. And over the years, TXCP recognized that there is additional support that accounting professionals often need. Just don't always know where to go to for that support. So this is a resource where they can reach out to their peers who are trained and take an oath of confidentiality so that they can be trusted. And they can work with individuals in whatever they're going through, whatever they're battling, and find the right support mechanism that will help them get through a difficult time.
That is so amazing. I love that. I really believe that one of the things, this might sound like a cliche, right? But I think that nobody understands us better than the people that are going through the stuff that we're going through, right? And a lot of the times I think that means who else is in a similar position to myself, or who else went through the same training or some certification and is basically doing the same thing as I am. Right, to actually understand.
That's right. If you walk through that journey and you know what kind of obstacles and what kind of pitfalls that you can encounter, that just makes you a better resource to be able to reach out and help somebody else that's experiencing that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there was something else that you mentioned, and I think that's also very important and interesting to make the distinction, right? You have CPA on the name. But you guys not only cater and not only accept CPAs, I've seen in your website, right? You accept all different kinds of designations within the accounting and finance, even lawyers.
Absolutely. In fact, we have quite a few attorneys that are in our group, and some are CPAs. We have those overachievers who do double duty or even triple duty with lots of designations after their names. So it can take a lot of different forms. We have people that are in the financial planning and wealth management arena. We have finance professionals. We have support people, actually, that are very involved in the accounting profession, but they have a little bit different role, yet they still want to be involved. They want to still be plugged into what the issues are among accounting professionals and want to be able to connect to resources as much as anyone else. So it really has a range across the board in which we really see as a big bonus for this organization because you're getting sort of a dynamic range of perspectives on the entire profession that you may not get if you're in a particular interest area. So you're exposed to different ideas. You're seeing what's coming down the road for in terms of challenges and opportunities that you may not have encountered in your particular role.
Yeah, I think that last part I think is very important, right? I think that sometimes and I mean all kinds of professions, right? I'm not only talking about CPAs or accounting and finance, but I think that we can get so focused on what we do, right? And just so enthralling that we're not seeing, the other adjacent, maybe professions or branches or other interests, right? That we may be able to complement to our everyday activities and professions.
Yeah, that's the name of the game for these, like I keep calling it meaningful connections, right? And that's to me that really is significant because if you're connecting with somebody else and they're giving you a different perspective or they're bringing new information to you, that truly is meaningful to your role.
I love that. And speaking of meaningful connections and just meeting other people, I know that you guys have a big conference coming up next month. So can you tell us a little bit more about, the conference, where it is, what we can expect?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the we're calling it the S.T.A.R.S conference, but the full name is the Spring Technology and Accounting Resources Summit, and that will be held on May 13th and 14th at the Marriott in Sugar Land. And we're very excited about this because we have multiple planning committees that have been involved in this, and these are professionals again from different interest areas that have been working very hard to bring the best of the best in terms of facilitators, dynamic formats, any kind of learning opportunities that they can think of that will keep professionals at the forefront of their skills. And so we have put together this conference, and it's multifaceted in the sense that there are tracks that pertain to specific interests: audit, energy, tax, and so on. So you can go there and you can get your technical skills. You can get very specific interest focused skills. But then there are also things that affect everyone, such as what's the impact of AI in the accounting profession? How is ESG going to hopefully not sneak up on us, but hopefully how is it going to impact us at some point? It's kind of been all over the board. So what is the current status of that and what can we expect moving forward? So we've got just a range of that focused information to information that's a little bit broader that affects everybody.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love the name. I love the fact that you guys were able to create, an acronym of that name. It's always better, right? It gets stuck. Just the stars name. I love that. And so, if for someone that has never attended one of this conference, right? Because you mentioned there are different paths. It's not
Yeah.
just one thing. What's the one thing, what's the one thing that you would tell them like you can't miss?
Well, it's difficult to actually say that because again, we kind of live in a culture where everybody wants what they want, the way they want it, when they want it. And that, though, is the beauty of this conference because we have multiple tracks that you can select. You can kind of create your own conference. So if that various focused interest sessions are of most interest to you, you have the ability to choose those. If you want to go to something a little bit more general, then you have the ability to do that as well. There's a couple of things that I'm really looking forward to. One is we have the CFO of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo who is going to be presenting a keynote. And it's going to be really interesting to hear her stories, the behind the scenes story of what it takes from her perspective to manage such a big community-wide event such as that. There's a lot of moving parts, and she's right there in it, and will be able to give us those stories about what her day looks like when she's dealing with all of these moving parts. Very much looking forward to that. Another one I'm looking forward to is we're trying a lunch session over lunch where attendees they can seat themselves at tables that have different topic orientations, such as
Okay.
energy, tax, there's business and industry, there's audit and accounting. So you can focus on what you want to really zoom in on. Be seated with people that have also chosen those interest areas, and then have a discussion about some of the challenges and opportunities that are present in your workday. And there's a little bit of structure to it, but we also want it to be an organic discussion so that it goes where the participants want it to go. Because what we want and what we hope is at the end of the session that they will walk away going, yeah, that really touched on some areas that were so important to me, and I picked up some ideas, and hopefully I've helped somebody else with their skill level as well. So I'm very excited that we'll be doing that. A little bit of a different twist on some of our interactive sessions, but really looking forward to it.
So that's going to be, let me see if I understand correctly. That's going to be sort of like a panel discussion, but it's going to be within like a table where people are going to see, I'm looking forward, I want to know more about, I don't know, tax or energy or whatever the table says, and then they're going to sit down and discuss.
Yeah, each
Uh-huh.
table of 10, there'll be rounds of 10, and you'll be able to see, and they'll be signed so that you can tell which table is pertaining to which focus area.
I thought it was going
And
to be by
you,
luck, just
yeah,
something like,
well, we discussed, like, do we assign people, but no, we want this to be completely relevant to each individual, right? So we don't always know that because you may be in tax, but you're really curious what's going on in the energy sector, or vice versa. So we didn't want to restrict anybody because we want them to be able to select, again, create their own conference, if you will, that where they are that day. And this allows them to do that. And then once they do that, they're sitting with people who are also very focused on that particular interest that day, right? And that's where the discussion begins. And I'm very hopeful about this because as a pilot program at our fall conference, we tried a similar type of discussion. And it was a very small group that participated in it, but it was a very meaningful one in that we had about 10 people that got together. And they sat down at this table and they started talking about things that they were encountering, the challenges that they were seeing. And because it was a small group at this table, they allowed themselves to be very vulnerable in their discussion. And so they were opening up with all kinds of challenges that each of them faced. And because they were vulnerable and that the table accepted that as a safe space, then the ideas started coming from their colleagues. They started generating ideas of how they could deal with different situations. By the end of the session, everybody stayed behind to exchange contact information because this was such a valuable discussion to them that they wanted to continue it by staying connected to each other after the conference. So you couldn't ask for more than that. And that's what our hope is for these lunch sessions, to be able to continue that process.
that is great. I think that, from that and that specific story, it's sort of like a gathering of the minds, right? And they can create their own group or committee or mastermind afterwards, right? If they choose to. That's great. I like the fact.
In fact, you had mentioned that we are actually going to be asking people that are at these lunches, what are you interested in terms of post-conference groups? Are you interested in a mastermind group? Are you interested in an energy group or a tax group that gets together? Because that's kind of the direction that TXCPA Houston would like to go, is to get these smaller groups together so that they can really dig into some significant issues and leave whatever the event is feeling that they're enriched.
That sounds good. And from my understanding, right, you mentioned we were talking about this lunch like discussion within the tables. So if I'm hearing correctly, it's not going to be one of those 2-day conferences where all you do is sit and listen, right? There's going to be different things, different ways of actually interacting and learning.
Yeah, we have like QuickBooks that would be more of a workshop session. There's an AI session that's going to be very interactive. So the planning committees that have been working on this, they recognize, there are a few topics that lend themselves well to the traditional lecture or classroom type of presentation. If there's very specific information that attendees need to know, but oftentimes as adult learners, we process information differently. We need to be able to examine what we're hearing. We need to be able to consider it, and we need to be able to apply it to our actual circumstances. And if we have the ability to do that, we have the time to do that, then we are much more likely to leave that session with something we can actually take back to our offices and use. There's a startling statistic that just the typical conference attendee forgets everything that they learned within about 4 days.
Yeah.
We don't want that. We want this to be information that, yeah, I can use that. I can't wait to get back to my office to try that.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I find it interesting that instead of doing one conference just for, let's say, CFOs, or just one conference for energy, or one conference for tax, you guys are putting them all together, right, in this big 2-day conference. Can you tell me a little bit of why that is? And if it's the first time that you guys do it, or if you've done it before?
Well, we started for the first time with this unified conference strategy last fall, and we had a great response to that. And so we're building on that. We're trying that again and moving forward with a conference in the fall and a conference in the springtime. And we want to bring as wide of a perspective, as many perspectives together as we can of accounting professionals. So, we feel that, learning very specific skills within your interest area, of course, is very, very valuable, but so is getting a broader perspective of learning what challenges may be coming that you haven't experienced yet. So that's how we've designed this conference, that you can come together as a tax professional and be with your community of tax professionals, or energy, or audit, or any several other areas like that. But you can also go beyond that. You can also go and find out what a tax professional is going through if you're in audit. You can explore what some of the challenges are. You can find out some of the innovative new ideas that some of your colleagues are exploring in other avenues that you may not have been exposed to. So we kind of see it as the best of both worlds. Is you're getting very specific information that's useful to you, but you're also going beyond that.
I think that's very interesting, and I can see why why it was a success when you tried it last fall, right? Because in my mind, I'm looking at it as a way of, well, if I'm someone that might be thinking of changing, jobs, or changing roles, or even changing industries, or I might be on the fence, maybe I'm a little bit younger and I'm on the fence of what path I want to take. I think that this is a great place to be, right? In order to see, well, I want to go see one tax talk, one energy talk, one of this, and then I can actually, see if it interests me as much as I think it does, right?
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity for exploration, right? And especially if you're a young professional, right? And you either are curious about other options available to you, or you just aren't satisfied with where you are. This is an opportunity where you can ask people that are doing those roles that, what do you experience? What's your experience like? Tell me what your typical day is. What should I consider if I'm thinking about moving into this area? What skills do I need to develop? Who do I need to talk to? That's a big one. And you have the opportunity to do that at this conference and reach a lot of different people. And then you've opened the door, right? You've made those contacts. You've started forming those relationships that then you can call on as you go down whatever journey that you've decided to pursue.
I like that. And also I'm thinking about the cross networking, right? You're meeting people. So regardless of what stage you are in your career, you're meeting people from different companies, industries, and verticals within accountancy, right? And finance.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so what kind of professionals usually attend? Like, is it just for CPAs, or is it broader than that?
It's broader than that. Yeah, we've got, the bulk of our membership are CPAs, but again, we have different roles. We have people that work with them, such as you mentioned, attorneys previously, and wealth management personnel, even support staff that are wanting to learn more about the accounting profession. So it just is a range that extends even beyond membership, because, I keep talking about our members because they're near and dear to me, but we also have non-members that are not within the organization. And again, that just adds a layer of exposure to perspectives that you might not otherwise see.
That was going to be my next question. If it was only for members of TXCP Houston or also non-members.
Non-members are very welcome. We love them. It's great to get to know them. That's the beauty of the conference, is that it does give us time to actually talk and become familiar with one another.
Great. I know, so it all sounds great, but I also know that there's going to be some people that are going to be interested, on, like, let's call it the hard benefits, right? And I'm thinking for that, we're talking about CPE credits. Are there going to be any CPE credits involved?
Boy, are there. Yes. You stay for 2 days of this conference and you'll get 20 CPE hours. So that will get you halfway through your requirements. But you can even get farther than that, because on the day before the conference, we're having a pre-conference ethics program that fulfills your licensing requirement for ethics. And that would be an additional 4 hours. So you can potentially get 24 hours of CPE at this event.
That's great, and so they're not only walking away with new people that they're meeting, they're learning, they're actually broadening their knowledge by having all of these different paths, but they're also getting those CP. That's
They are. And then there's one more benefit that we started this again at the fall conference, which we got some really positive feedback about this. We thought we'd try it, and maybe if nobody got any benefit, then fine. But what we did was we issued, for those that were interested, a track certificate. So if you stuck with tax, if that was your primary focus and you really wanted to stick with that, you could do those courses in the tax track. You would get a certificate showing that you focused your energies and your attention on that particular interest area. And we can do that in multiple tracks. And we got really strong feedback from many of our young professionals that was a benefit to them, because that was tangible proof. They could go show their boss, like, look what I accomplished. So they felt good about having that ability to be able to say what they had done.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I can see how having that certificate would definitely help, and also entice more people to join, right? Because you're actually showing, hey, I showed up, right? Yes. I was there, I showed up.
Yes.
Okay. And for the people that, for whatever reason, they're seeing this, they're interested, but they can't physically show up, is there also a virtual component to it?
There is. We are expanding our ability for virtual participation. All of the sessions, actually, at this conference will be available virtually. And that is terrific. If you don't have the means to access the conference in person, it's a great option for that. Encourage people to attend in person if at all possible, because that's where you get really that rich interaction and those connections that you're not going to get anywhere else. And while you're still going to get great information virtually, you might miss out on some of that interaction. Yeah. But that depends on people's situation, and we recognize that, so we have the option to be able to participate virtually.
That's great. And especially I'm hearing on the grapevine that you guys are going to have, I think, someone from Australia joining you in person. So
we've gone international here. So yeah, we have a facilitator that is coming from the land down under. And again, talk about stretching your perspectives, right? To see what is it like to be an accounting professional in Australia. We'll see. I don't know if it's different. We can find out.
See, that's great. Maybe people from Australia that want to see how it would be to be an accountant in the United States and Texas, they can join virtually, right?
That's
right. They can't do the trip to Texas. That's awesome. And so, just to wrap it up a little bit, how do people sign up? Where do they go to sign up? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
They can go to TXCPA Houston.CPA, and there will be on the homepage you'll see a graphic that will have the S.T.A.R.S conference on it, and click on that graphic and that will take you to you can see the agenda, you can see the speakers and learn a little bit more about that. You can see the entire schedule and also any registration information.
Okay, and you said it's going to be at the Marriott Sugarland, May 13th and 14th.
Correct.
The ethics part, it's also the Sugarland on the 12th?
Yes, it's on the 12th.
Okay, it's same hotel, Marriott Sugarland.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And if someone's on the fence, they're looking at this, or you saw the website already, what would you say to convince them to register?
I would say people People, 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 right? To use the paraphrase the real estate world, but it's people, people, people. There's just going to be a range of people that have information that's going to be valuable. It's going to open doors for them, and this is not a conference of 1,000 people. It's a smaller scale. Still a lot of people there, but in scale to where you can actually have those meaningful interactions with people, and that's you're going to walk away with a lot of value from that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And Mark, thanks so much, for being here, for accepting my invitation to be a guest on the podcast. Is there any last words that you would like to say before we wrap up?
Anxious to get to know everybody, meet as many people as we can, because we want to continue to widen our knowledge base and continue to facilitate the connections with people, because that really moves us forward. So we look forward to seeing everyone.
Thanks so much, Mark. That was great. And thanks so much for everyone listening or watching. Once more, this has been an episode of the Lead to Scale show. Thank you, Mark Allen, Executive Director of TXCPA Houston, for joining us. And I will have, depending on the platform, the links up there or down there for the conference as well, so that you guys can go and check the registration links. Thank you so much, Mark, and see you guys next time.